Cat's Cradle.
Cool.
Just staying in the Swartland, staying in Paardeberg.
So we're still on the Paardeberg on granite soils. This is Old Vines Chenin, planted in '79. Again, very, very poor soils here. So this is a block that we're often, and especially in 22, we've been driven by water stress to pick this because, it's a wine that falls apart very easily. And I think what I like about this is, we pick it and it's got so much reserve when it's young, but it's, again, it's got so much back end, I think there's a real understated power to this wine.
It's almost the opposite to paper kite in that sense, isn't it? And paper kite's so expressive from from the first day we see it, whereas Cat's Cradle said it needs a bit of a run-up. A couple of months in bottle, and then it starts expressing itself.
But I think that's, I think it's easy to look at Chenin as, like a workhorse, and you want some upfront fruit, and you really can push the fruit to that. But I think then you do that to the detriment of the back end of the wine. So I quite like this sort of very understated, textural, structured wine. When it's young, it's very tightly wound, and then when it does start to blossom, it's absolutely incredible.
I love the floral lift of this wine as well. It's this really lovely, as I say, blossom. It's sort of citrus blossom and
I think there's
apple blossom as well. It's really citrus.
And I think these are wines that are very delicate. I think because the Paardeberg is such a rugged environment, it's tempting to think of these wines as rugged, but they actually are quite delicate. And I think this is a wine that needs to go into old 600-liter barrels, so much tighter, more reductive environment. And they need to be carried through a little bit. And I think they're very delicate wines, but I think for me it's kind of where Chenin should be, is less upfront, more at the back.
But on the palate as well, it has this sort of lovely texture to it, also like the basil stem or sage leaf, or
and you get this wonderful waxiness to the
bit of fennel spice as well, and a little touch of. And that waxiness, I find, increases with time in bottle as well. It gets more and more opulent, richer and richer, but it never loses that balance between floral, herbal, and fruit, which is really part of, I think, the wine's charm, is that sort of those combination of three things evolving all together with that nice little salty twist through the mid palate. So a really lovely wine. Are you making all of these wines pretty similarly? Obviously, the Tin Soldier sees some skin contact, but is it just different size oak essentially is the main difference? And you're bottling them all pretty much at the same time?
It's very light touches. Pretty much bottling at the same time. It's very light touches, but like I say, we don't try to do too much. But then, like with the Semillons, they occasionally need a racking off some of the heavy lees. So we'll always assess each pick, each parcel as to what its need. But the idea is to do as little as possible. But if we need to intervene, and do a racking or something like that, then we will. But the ideal is to really mechanically do as little as possible to the wines.
So essentially, you choose a path for it at picking, because that's obviously that's a decision that you can't really reverse. And then you sort of hold its hand throughout that.
It's a bit like curling, just get the You don't want to touch it too much, but you want to just create
an environment in which it finds its own path. I'm gonna stop spitting. This is going well.
This is the afternoon edition. We've got to keep the chatter fresh.
But you know what we mean, Dave.
I know exactly what you mean. Isn't it about the...
I love a good analogy.
It's like curling, I like it.
I can see a thread through all we've tasted so far. Would you say this has been influenced by the vintage, or is this a trend that you've been following? Because I've got a lot of your older wines. And these are very different.
Do you think more restrained, more?
Yes.
No, I think there's a restraint that's come in over the years, because I think I've had, I think like we said about this, especially with this Chenin, the first few years that I worked with it, I almost wanted to push it, pick it a bit riper, get more immediate impact from it. And I think now I've sort of realized, as we do, and it takes a little bit of confidence to do less, and just say it will naturally get where it needs to be, and I don't need to push it as hard. So I think that's sort of come in with the wines a little bit. And then I remember my 13s, I did push those wines. I remember I did batonnage, and and then I found a few years later the wines were very rich, so I've sort of kept an eye on how the wines evolve. And I think sometimes if we pick a little bit ripe and push the wines a bit hard, they can be a bit loose and, in a few years. So I think there's definitely an element of that that's crept in, or just sort of being a little bit more restrained.
I don't think you're alone with that either. I think a lot of producers in your sort of generation, in terms of when you started, and even the ones that started up until 10 years ago and after you, had gone through the exact same process. Started out rich and full of confidence and very expressive, and then slowly reined it in. But also it's a bit market driven as well. I mean, before you've got 10 vintages under your belt, no one really knows what you're capable of. So now you can afford to not be as expressive and open and opulent at release time. You can actually say, well, these wines are a little bit more hemmed in and less showy at release time. Because you've got 10 years of wines to prove yourself.
And I think if you travel with the wines, I think there's a tendency to say, the wines are very restrained and relatively austere. But then when you travel with the wines and you sit in London, you think, our wines are fruit bombs, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Peter Allen and I were saying there's an element of cellar palate, and you say, this vintage of Peter Max is so restrained, and and all that. And then we sit in a London restaurant, and you're like, it's an absolute fruit bomb compared to a few of the other wines on the table. So, I think South Africa still, we still offer very opulent fruit. We've got ripeness in bags. So, I think part of me is, just wanted to just rein that in a little bit, because, we still export about 70% of our wines. So, we need to stand on a world stage, in a good space as well. So I think, there's definitely, look, it's been 10 years of learning as well. And, we've developed as people. And
well, the market's developed as well. I mean, the market that we're selling these wines into is very different to the market that we sold the first wines into in South Africa.
But you also fixed your Primus program.
Well, it's largely cork.
But a lot of those earlier ones were oxidizing developing very quickly. Whereas now they hold the restraint.
Well, we ditched the natural cork. I was a big proponent of natural cork, but I think the variability in oxygen on cork was, was a big problem. Look, and I've opened older vintages that are absolutely singing, and then I've had a few bottles I like what you say, and it's that variability. But again, that was
unpredictability as well.
A steep learning curve.
When did you change to conglomerate?
18.
I think a lot of people changed around at the same time.
Unfortunately, one of the big suppliers had a very bad batch coming through this.
Had a bad year.
Had a very bad year. And it's been very positive for me, because I think we put in so much effort, and then you want to open the wines and they should be pristine and exactly where they should be.
Cool, nice one. And how many years have you been working with this vineyard for?
This vineyard?
What was the first release? Was it 16 or 17?
It took a ton in 15 as
15,
well.
okay.
Okay. But that was mostly being blended in Rocking Horse.
Right.